Say that again.
Go ahead, Josh.
I'm happy to chair, Mark, if you want, but you're coming in loud and clear if you'd like to continue as chair too.
Okay. If I start breaking up, then you can take over.
All right.
I'm just up in the woods in Maine, and my connection isn't great.
Yeah.
You've had a great travel year.
Yeah, I try to travel as much as I can.
You're certainly doing it. That's great. What part of Maine?
I'm up by I'm on the coast up by Kennebunkport.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, up by Goose Rock Beach area.
If you get pulled over, my cousin's a sergeant on the police department there.
Okay, I might need them.
Tom Arnold.
He used to be on that show Roseanne, right? A different Tom Arnold.
Are we not hearing from Joe Mellon tonight?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want, Gene?
There he is. It's official.
You guys were chatting so much, I couldn't cut in.
There's a reason for that, Joe.
No phone yet, Gene?
Okay, it's 6:30, and I think everybody's here. Gene is on, Josh and Tony. So I'm going to open the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Wednesday, October 4th, 2023 at 6:30 by Zoom. Meeting is open. We have two opening comments. As usual, the compost area on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Will be open. Resident parking stickers required. Visit Public Works page at nahant.org for a full list of acceptable material. Recycling for metal, white goods, and TVs and computers. Last day of the season will be October 28th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. behind the DPW garage on Flash Road. Resident stickers are required. Visit Public Works Department at nahant.org for acceptable materials. Certain fees may apply. Curbside leaf pickup begins in October on every Monday, Columbus Day. The week of Columbus Day, bags will be picked up on Tuesday, October 11th. Leaves must be in biodegradable bags only. No open barrels, root balls, or branches bigger than 4 inches diameter. Bags must be put out by 7 a.m. Water, sewer, and trash bills due October 23rd. Please call the Treasurer Collector's Office with any questions. Trash bills have been split between the three water and sewer installments. So essentially, a trash bill will be divided by 3, including the water and sewer installment as we go forward. The annual charitable cornhole tournament hosted by the Nahant Fire Association 2271 is now Sunday, October 8th, starting at 1 a.m. at Flash Road Park. Town Hall will be closed Monday, October 9th, and observe the holiday. Through vaccine clinics for Nahant residents and employees. Wednesday, October 11th at Nahant Town Hall. High dose clinics, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Regular dose clinics, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. registration. Nahant.org for registration material. Farmers Market, Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Flash Road, October 14th. For more information or to become a vendor, visit the market page at nahant.org or email ktaylor@nahant.org. Annual PTO Halloween Bash, Saturday, October 21st, starting at 2 p.m. at the Nahant Little League field. Josh, any opening comments?
No.
No, none here.
Mr. Chairman, Anna, our public health nurse, is on the call. If you don't mind, she can speak a little bit more to the flu shot clinic.
Hey everyone. So we'll be having two separate clinics like we did last year. The first one in the morning from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's for our high dose flu vaccine for those ages 65 and older. At that clinic, there will also be representatives from our regional public health coalition who, through a grant, have market basket gift cards that will be available for people. If they take a short survey, they'll be able to spin a prize wheel and get a market basket gift card in denominations from $5 to $25 for those receiving the high dose flu shot. We have plenty of appointments left. We have 150 total doses of our high dose flu shot that we are able to give out. We'll also coordinating with Mary Minor for the Council on Aging to go downstairs to lunch and give some people their flu shots downstairs that have mobility issues and can't get upstairs, or that just want to stay downstairs and enjoy lunch with their flu shot. Later that afternoon, we will host our regular flu shot clinic. That is open for anyone over the age of 18. We have 50 doses of our regular flu shots to give out and plenty of appointments left. If you have any questions, my email and phone number are located in the sign up on the community calendar on the town webpage as well. Just wanted to also say that the COVID vaccine is now pretty much only offered at CVS and other pharmacies locally. There are no plans for public health at this point to be offering COVID vaccine clinics. But if you need any help finding a vaccine or anything, please feel free to reach out. And the only other vaccine that is coming up is the RSV vaccine. RSV is a virus called respiratory syncytial virus. It's most common in kids, but can also affect older adults. There are 3 new preventative treatments for different age groups that have just been approved through all of the different departments of public health and various agencies. There is a preventative treatment that is available for all newborns up to ages 8 months for this first RSV season. There's also a treatment for pregnant mothers and for older adults as well. And as more information comes out about all of those, I'll prepare something that we can send out to town residents, but reach out if you have any questions. I am most familiar with the one for babies, but also have information on the one for older adults as well.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks, Anna.
If anyone has trouble registering for the flu clinic, you can either call the Council on Aging or you can call the Board of Selectmen's office at the town hall, and we'll be happy to, sign you up over the phone.
Thanks, Tony. Josh, why don't you take over, because I seem to be dropping once in a while.
Okay, yeah, sure. All right, next on the agenda is the Coast Guard housing project update. Tony, can you provide an update on that, please?
Yes. So first I'll let Dan go. So there's 2 different kind of things going on. We have the remaining tenants in the housing there, and then there's the demolition project. So Dan, I'll let you go first.
Okay, there are 3 tenancies left that we're trying to evacuate, and we were hoping to get a pre-trial conference date on this Friday, but the housing court is really behind on taking their submissions, so they have yet to schedule that, but we're well on our way to that date. But on a happier note, One of the three tenancies looks like they are making a bid to be out of their tenancy in December. We're trying to negotiate a date before then, but that's still in the offing. So hopefully within a few weeks, we can report that we'll only have 2 tenancies remaining. But that's an ongoing matter at the moment. And that's all I have for that, unless you guys have any questions.
And then as far as on the demolition side, we let American Environmental know that the town meeting vote passed. We've submitted all our required documentation with bond counsel to get the borrowing completed. Our American Environmental is going to be hand delivering their signed contracts tomorrow to the town hall, along with their insurance and bond certificates. We had a pre-construction meeting on site with all the players, Axiom, American Environmental, Dan Script was there, Hall Company was there, Zach, our DPW superintendent, our police chief, our fire chief, Vicky Masson, myself. We were all present and, got to walk through a couple of the units and really talk about schedule. They're hoping to mobilize in the next week or so and get started. They've already started coordinating with our DPW on cutting caps for sewer and water. They've already begun working with National Grid on disconnecting power, and also the comms companies, Verizon and Comcast, on disconnecting communication wires. We don't have a schedule yet. However, we should have one in the next, like I said, in the next week. They hope to mobilize in the next week or two. Likely they're going to start at Goddard Drive. Our thought process there was, it's somewhat of a cookie cutter approach, but they're going to start and kind of get into a groove, and then I'm sure they're going to move a lot quicker. So our thought was have them start on Goddard Drive and kind of keep them away from the school as much as possible. Also, they're going to limit their trucking to avoid pick up and drop off hours at the school as well. We also went through the buildings and did an inventory of appliances, the kitchen cabinets. Some units have had washer and dryer machines left in them. So we looked at dishwashers, refrigerators, stoves, furnaces, sheds, and cabinets. Put together an inventory list with some ratings, and really most of the stuff in there doesn't have any value. It's really reached its end of life. It doesn't really have any value. Some stuff does. We have some oil furnaces that probably 2 or 3 that were installed, in the last couple of years, that still have good value to them. So we're going to remove those and go through the proper surplus process for that. Some of the sheds and some other items, but really there's not much worth saving. And then lastly, the fire department was able to utilize one of the vacant properties for a training over the weekend. So thanks to Hall Company and Dan to coordinate with Chief Antrim on that. They were able to, get some use out of the vacant property and do some training this past weekend.
So the December, the moving out of one of the tenants by December sounds like it probably doesn't quite fit within the anticipated schedule. It'd be great if that tenant is on Castle Road, right? So that house could come down if they were out a little bit sooner. Is that
Yep,
true?
that's what we're negotiating that. I'm waiting for a response, hopefully tomorrow, but that's a good point, Josh. And we're trying to get it, actually trying to get it for December, November 1st. That would be the goal.
Yeah, that would be helpful. And yeah, that's good. Good luck with that.
Tony, can you talk about the demolition itself a little bit more? How that will be phased? Do they take the buildings down first, then the slab, or they do the underground tanks first? How is that going to proceed?
So like I said, again, we're gonna get we'll get a formal schedule from them in the next week or so. But from that pre-construction meeting, the first step is cutting power. Next step is dealing with the cuts and caps to the water and sewer services, which we're hoping to. Right now, Mark, a lot of those shutoffs are actually, in the walkway close to the front door of the homes. We want to move those back to the sidewalk. And then I believe the next step is they're going to deal with the oil tanks next. Get rid of all the oil tanks, and then they're going to get in and start doing, abatement. Probably, like I said, they'll probably do like 2 houses at a time. Abate 2 houses, demolish 2 houses, and then, kind of work their way down the street, starting on the Goddard Drive side.
Okay, great, thanks.
Anything else on the Coast Guard houses? Tony or Dan? Okay, moving on to new business. We have a vote to approve an event request. Would you like to make that motion, Gene?
Yeah, sure. I move that the Board of Selectmen, oh, I've got the wrong one. I'm sorry.
I'll do it. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request for the presentation from the Make Way for Duckling sculptor, Nancy Schoen, on Saturday, November 4th, 2023, starting at 2 p.m. at the Nahant Town Hall.
Seconded.
This presentation is being brought to you by the Nahant Public Library, and will be welcome. And we will welcome the highly esteemed sculptor Nancy Schoen, who is well known for her iconic creations like the Make Way for Ducklings statues in the Boston Common and the Tortoise and the Hare, and many other public art installations. More information, including how to purchase tickets, will be available on the community calendar at nahant.org. This is exciting to have the artists of such iconic art here in Nahant. Sounds like it'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, Josh, I think it's a great opportunity for people to come and meet our new librarian, Nori Morgenstein, who started, I think, this week. So it'll be a great time for people to say hi to her. And also, I want to thank Linda Jenkins, who is on the board of trustees for the library, for organizing this. Great job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd likewise like to say thank you to Linda for doing such a great job with this. She's put an effort into it, a real effort.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Okay, we have
Mr. Chairman,
some.
before you move to the next thing,
Yeah.
and since we're on the topic of events, I see Peg Curran is on the call. She's the chairwoman of the Cultural Council. And Peg, I believe you're joining us tonight to talk a little bit about the upcoming grant program offered by the Cultural Council. And I think I missed it. I don't know if we added it to the agenda, but if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, it seems like a good time to let Peg speak to that.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Peg.
Thank you. We just wanted to get the announcement out there and on the public record about this grant process that we're currently going through. So I just have a short blurb I'm going to read. The Nahant Cultural Council was recently allocated $5,500 from the Mass Cultural Council to support programs in the arts, humanities, and science. Our goal is to foster a rich cultural life here in Nahant by promoting excellence, education, diversity, and inclusion, which will contribute to the vitality of our community. This past year, grants were awarded by the council to support a Delvina Theater program for the Council on Aging, the Nahant Historical Society's La Liberté live exhibit, and an Ellingwood Chapel concert featuring local violinist Katerina Radleberger. The Nahant Cultural Council awards grants based on review criteria. An applicant should be a Nahant resident or work with a sponsoring Nahant organization. Applications must be submitted by October 17th through the Mass Cultural website. We encourage local artists, musicians, historians, authors, and others to support this grant opportunity to improve the cultural life of our town. Please visit www.nahantarts.org for more information or contact the Nahant Cultural Council at email culturalcouncil@nahant.org. That's it.
Thanks,
Thank
Peg.
you.
Could you repeat when the application deadline is?
October 17th.
Okay, so that's coming up. So Cultural Council, as Peg said, supports a lot of local arts, public art, visual art, music, dance. So if you have an idea and a vision for some art you'd like to be partially funded through the Cultural Council, follow the directions Peg just gave.
Right. Thank you very much.
Peg, is there, I assume there's also a link you can get to from the nahant.org website.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Nahant Cultural Council is listed on the nahant.org website as one of the committees. And if you go to that page, you'll find information and links about how to apply for a grant, what the criteria might be, the timeline, and also our email address, which goes to all current 6 members of the council. So we'd be happy to hear your questions, walk you through the application process, do anything to make this work for everyone.
Sounds good. Thanks, Peg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some meeting minutes to approve. Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from August 16th and September 6th. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from August 16th, 2023, and September 6th, 2023.
Seconded.
Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Ongoing business, housing production plan update.
Yeah, Josh, I know that I'm gonna turn this over to Michelle Capano. I think she's on. She could give us an update on this plan.
Yep. Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So thank you. We're working very quickly through the rest of the stages of finalizing our housing production plan. The committee will be meeting tomorrow night. We'll be reviewing the last activities of our strategies and recommended sites. And then from there, we will be providing a final draft to both the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board, probably in the next week or so. And then as part of this process, there'll be a joint meeting in early November of both boards, which they'll vote to adopt the plan, and then it will be sent to the state for their review. So great collaboration with our committee and members of the public who have attended and provided feedback. We're really proud of this deliverable that's going to be published and be available to the community in November. And we're looking forward to moving this process along and hopefully having some, positive outcomes coming from it.
Michelle, can you give us a sneak preview of what you'll be talking about tomorrow night?
So I would like to decline because I want to be respectful of other members of my committee, as well as members of the public who will be attending the meeting. We'll be reviewing the remaining activities within our housing strategies. And then some additional just review and challenge around the proposed sites. But I'd like to remind everyone, this is a strategy. This is a roadmap to get to our 40B compliance. And so much of what is in the plan is the first step. The next steps would still require some action by the Board of Selectmen and subsequently go to before town meeting. So I don't want to steal the thunder out of the plan, obviously, but I do want to be respectful of my committee members who may not be on tonight.
Clearly understood.
Let me just add, Michelle. So tomorrow night's meeting will be a working meeting with members of our consulting team, Metropolitan Area Planning Council. The primary purpose of this is to pretty much sign off on the draft housing production plan. Once the committee does that, that plan will be forwarded to the Board of Selectmen and to the Planning Board for their review and approval. So although this is a working meeting tomorrow night, I don't believe we'll be going into public forum at this meeting, but we will be presenting this to the Board of Selectmen and to the Planning Board, and there'll be more opportunities for public discourse at that time.
Thanks, Mark. And we've been receiving some inquiries via our email at hpac@nahant.org. So please feel free, if you have questions or comments, please email us. We are going through those and responding back to members of the community who had asked us questions.
Thank you.
One quick question, Michelle. Did you say, when did you say the public would get a view of the draft?
November.
So after
the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board.
Okay, so there's no publicly viewable draft currently, right? Okay.
No, because it's a draft and it's changing. So we'll publish the final document in November.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Excuse me. All right. So that's it on housing production plan update. Preserving East Point. I don't have anything new. It's just both parties have filed their motions on the eminent domain validity, and likely decision will be sometime early-ish next year. Be hearing in November. That's all I have. Gene or Mark, did you have anything else on East Point?
I don't have any. I did have a conversation today with our attorneys who are representing us in the eminent domain proceedings, and I was assured that things are going smoothly, and as you said, Josh, discovery phase is done of the validity phase, and hopefully this will come to an end shortly.
Okay, town administrators report. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a number of different things, some of which are listed on the agenda. First, I'd like to say that there's National Grid gas main work is going to be beginning soon on Emerald Road and also Wilson Road. Emerald Road is slated also for water work and eye work. That's why National Grid's getting in there ahead of us. So that's going to be starting soon. I also want to announce that we were notified this week. We were the recipients of a coastal zone management grant award for the permitting of the 40 Steps Coastal Bank and Beach Renourishment Project. That grant is for $185,944, and only $38,649 of that 186 will come from the town. That's our match is only about $38,500, and we're turning it into almost $186,000. This is for permitting, where it's likely that the permitting could take anywhere from a year to 2 years. The Army Corps of Engineers is moving pretty slow these days on reviewing projects. But it's a 2-year grant award. We're meeting with CZM next week to go over the deliverables and the timeline. But good news there that we're making progress on that project. Also today we received bids for the II sewer work. So this is, dealing with inflow and infiltration of water into our sewer system. A lot of this project is priority areas, so it's low-lying areas of the town. And happy to announce that the low bidder came in under estimate. National Water Main Cleaning Company came in at $947,243.75. A National Water Main Cleaning Company is currently doing a lot of work in Swampscott and Revere and Lynn, so they're local at the moment. Well-known quality contractor. We had estimated and submitted and got approved $1.244 million for this project through SRF. So another, some good news there that we're about $250,000, $300,000 under budget based on that bid. We've had a lot of paving patchwork occurring throughout the town over the last couple weeks. Willow Road, Castle Way, Howe Road, Spring Road, Bass Point Road, and next week, early next week, the wharf will get some paving patching. It's already been crack sealed. The lot's been crack sealed by Atlantic Paving already. The Little Nahant Playground. I got some pictures here to share. Did you announce the ribbon cutting in the opening comments?
No, I don't think that was announced.
Okay, let me show you here.
We're seeing it. We're seeing your screen, Tony.
Okay, so these are just some before and after pictures of the Little Nahant Playground. As you can see, on the left is before and on the right is after.
You might want to go into presentation modes because it's sort of yeah. There you go.
Hit this one.
Yeah, I think that's the one. No, I guess not. Okay. Anyway, it just a little bit small, but that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know why
Yeah.
why it's doing that. Let's see here. How's that better?
That's better, yeah.
So here's the before. These are before and after pictures. We're happy to see a lot of residents, kids playing on the park already. We were able to really want to commend, the Zach and the DPW crew for all their work down there. They've done a phenomenal job. And of course, I'd be remiss to give a shout out to the Community Preservation Committee for funding this project and for the town for supporting it at town meeting. But we have all new benches, a whale, a humpback whale, a shipwreck, new surface material. We had a new picnic table and some new rocks around the edges there too. I believe we're going to be doing a ribbon cutting on Tuesday at noon, Tuesday the 10th at noon. So hopefully people can attend. It is open already, but we're going to have an official ribbon cutting on Tuesday next week.
Nice to have a good reason to celebrate. Yeah.
Yes.
Looks great. Looks fun.
I also wanted to share some pictures of Fort Ruckman. The east slope at Fort Ruckman. This is another CPC funded project coordinated with the Open Space Committee. Planting was completed this past week. We still have a couple more planting to do, some more planting to do. But here's some before pictures of this area and during construction. This entire, you couldn't even see this slope prior to this. It wasn't, at any sort of consistent grade. So a lot of invasive species removed. This is during the project. And this is what it looks like today. We have some new plantings in the corners. We have a new tree here. This wall was built by our DPW. So again, really, really great work, as you can see. And I encourage a lot of people to go down and take a look at it. The view from the top is really quite amazing. So another great project funded through the CPC.
Yeah, Tony, I've been there recently. It is outstanding, and I credit you and Zach for all the work that you've done with it, and I thank the Community Preservation Committee for funding this. This is another example. This in the Little Nahant playground of the impact of the Community Preservation Act. I think currently, do you know what the reimbursement is from the state for that? 70-80%?
It's close. It's close to 100%. Yeah, it's somewhere between 75 and 100%.
So for example, for every dollar we spend on this, the state is matching it.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite the deal. And I thank really the townspeople for participating in the Community Preservation Act, and these are some of the types of things that you get from it.
Yeah, it looks great up there. View is amazing, and the plantings are all carefully selected native species, and they're a little small now, but in a couple of years it's gonna look even more amazing. So, yeah.
Tony, who handled the selection of the plantings? As Josh says, they did a great job with it.
So through the Open Space Committee, who really led the charge on another CPC application related to plant maintenance and landscape maintenance at East Point, they hired a contractor. I forget the company name. Do you remember that, Josh?
I don't remember the name of the company.
And so we had him on contract. We brought him over to Bailey's Hill and had him, look at the area. And, he essentially put together a planting plan for us. And then we ordered the plants and according to, his recommendations. And then he actually helped us get them installed. And Swim, I would be reluctant to not mention Swim, who also helped pay for the management plan there.
Cartier, I think is the name of the company.
Yes, Partier.
Yeah, and the representative came out to the site and met with the open space committee people that were there and walked through his thoughts and yeah. So it's nice to see a plan come together.
Yeah, both those committees have put a real effort into this, and it shows.
Both those projects were funded, I think, in 2021. So, while it does take time for us to get through, we still have a lot of other projects that has been approved by town meetings, this year and last year. And we're still working our way through a lot of those projects. In fact, another one funded through CPC is restoration of the exterior to the library. And I saw today, there was one last piece to that project, which was replacing some blocks along the exterior wall around the windows. And I saw they were delivered today and they started working on that project too. So things are moving along.
There's another one happening at the village church right now, the entrance of the village church.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
partially
right.
funded by the CPC.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of these projects. A lot of these projects would not, we wouldn't be able to fund them if we didn't have the CPC program. So it really does allow us to do these projects while we're, focusing, having our budget focused on your, key infrastructure, critical needs, and then you have this program that allows us to do these other types of projects that are just as important, but sometimes would fall through the cracks because of the limits of our budget. So it's a critical program.
Tony, before we leave playgrounds, somebody asked me yesterday if there was any future plans to put a mini playground down at the Lowlands parking lot, like there used to be, something to keep the kids interested and active while they're there. Any consideration?
Not right now. We did get money funded through CPC to do some playground planning. But that was really focused on the existing playgrounds that, have a lot of needs. So, to me, I think I would say I grew up on that playground at Lowlands. So
right.
I'd love to bring it back, but I think, what we really should do is, focus on, start with, making the necessary improvements and repairs to our existing playgrounds before we build another one. But yeah, I would love to bring that one back too.
But I would like to add that, many of these CPC applications, which subsequently can become grants, come from citizens that are interested in something. If they want a playground, you got to take action and put it in an application. That's how some of these things happen.
A couple other just notes I took earlier this week at our department head meeting. We mentioned water, sewer, trash bills has gone out, and so haven't your tax bills have gone out as well. With those bills is a pre-stamped envelope that says Town of Nahant, but then it says Reading, Mass. We've installed Lockbox, which it's a streamlined payment processing system, which really helps us process your payments in an efficient manner. So please utilize the envelope, if you will, to submit your payment to the town. I know it looks funny that it says Reading on it, but it actually does record your payment with the town. We have 5 new call firefighters starting training next week, going to the academy. So I want to commend Chief Antrim on his recruiting process and wish those 5 new call firemen luck and hope they do well in the academy. We're meeting tomorrow. We received we got an earmark in the state budget of $50,000 for school security assessment. So we're meeting tomorrow at the school, NEMLEC, which is a regional program, a regional department that we're involved in. They have a STARS team, which really has to do with school safety and school services. They're coming out to meet with the school, myself, Chief Furlong, and we're going to be discussing how to best appropriate those funds. But it's focused on school security. And I already mentioned patchwork. Okay, that's all my stuff. Thank you.
Tony, on the patchwork, I don't know if there's bandwidth for this, but there's a sort of a bad spot in front of the village church. Really, like, it's not a big area, but you know, between the island, right at the corner there, the island and Angelo's house. So maybe you want to take a drive by there and take a look. It's not a big area, but it could definitely use some help.
No, we're that's on our list.
Okay.
Especially with the ADA improvements that the village church is doing there. It really deserves ADA ramps at that crosswalk. The curbing around that rotary really needs repair, and then, like you said, the pavement too. However, it's not the simplest install of ADA ramps because we have a fire hydrant right on the corner. So there's a couple challenges there. I know Zach has reached out to some traffic engineers to see if they could help us out design that so we can get the ramps installed first, you know, with a sidewalk. It's almost like if you're standing looking at the village church and the rotaries behind you, to your right would be a sidewalk, crosswalk going across there, and then going across to the Angelo property as well. So 4 ramps. And then once you do the ramps, you do the repave. Like, first you want to deal with the curbing. So it's on our list. We just it's probably going to be a spring, summer job. We also kind of want to wait to see the village church's ADA ramps done first, so we know where, you know, best place to put our crosswalk. But yeah, that's definitely on our list.
All right, so that's it, Tony?
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, so next up is Citizens Forum.
Can I just, Josh, I want to throw something in there that just.
Yeah, go ahead, Gene.
A couple of people, several, have told me that they're complaining about the airplane noise over the town.
Mm-hmm.
I asked if they had made the phone call, and they said yes, that they had made the phone calls to the FAA, and the response they're getting back in each of those. Now, there's just 2 of them. I don't know how many more have been complaining, but they're telling people that all aircraft in a certain runway, in fact, Dan, you might know which runway it is, but it's supposed to take everything over the causeway, and they're saying that to this date, and I have a copy of it, everything is going over the causeway, which in fact, nothing's going over the causeway. If anything, it's going over Short Beach. It's going over Bass Point. But I don't know where we go with that, whether we react to it or have somebody restart the committee. But it is apparently a problem.
Yeah, maybe we should put that on our agenda for next week to get Any updates that Dan might have, unless you want to say something now, Dan. And we do have a noise abatement committee. I don't know if they've been active recently, but maybe we should think about putting on the agenda for next meeting and getting some updates and information and that sort of thing.
I did reach out to the committee 2 weeks ago regarding the status of the possible change to the arrival for 22 left. I didn't hear anything back. If folks are complaining about the departures, that would be 4 right. And those departures typically go over they should go over the causeway, unless they're vectored for some reason to cut off a particular waypoint where they would likely cut right over Little Nahant if they're heading toward the northeast.
I know in the past, Dan, you've said that some of the smaller planes don't necessarily follow that route. I've seen that myself, over my house.
Yeah, Cape Air and the Cessna 102 or 302s, you can see those things anywhere. They sort of just fit those in because they're so small.
Well, these apparently were large aircraft, but Josh, I suggest we do that. Let's meet on it, put it on the agenda and discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, if we'll include the information on who to contact if you have a noise complaint, that kind of information as well.
Hello.
Just 1 second, George.
I want to speak I'd like to speak to the noise abatement problem.
Okay, go ahead.
I am on the committee. Unfortunately, I haven't really done a lot, excuse me, because of my health, but I can tell you that there was a big meeting back in 2022 with the CAC people, and everybody voted except for the people down in Hull, the representative down in Hull. I'm not a representative that can speak at these meetings, but I did listen to the meeting very intently, and everybody, and even Hull, but Hull said that they wanted to do a study for a year to see how the impact would be over Nahant. But everybody else and all the communities around that are involved in the CAC wanted to put these planes over Nahant, specifically Little Nahant in the corner down by the tides. They figured that that's the least amount of people that will be bothered by it compared to larger areas around the Commonwealth close to the airport. So that is wrong. I tried to speak to the representative down in Hull because during the meeting, they had suggested putting up some noise monitors down on the causeway, one by Massport and one by a private vendor, to make sure that Massport and the other one by the private vendor agreed. And I haven't gotten any further. I really haven't been able to talk to anybody. No one seems to want to talk to me. I put my name on my email on a list to get, notified when all these different CAC meetings are coming up. And I haven't been notified. But what I can say is that most of this is driven by complaints. The people that complain the most are the ones that are getting satisfaction. So what I can say to anybody that's living in the Nahant, especially the people in Little Nahant, because we're, affected by this more than anybody else in the whole scope of Little Nahant, Big Nahant, is to call, and then call again. Because the more we call and object to this, let them know that it's a health hazard, a noise hazard, everything else, it's not fair, and so on and so forth, is the way we're going to be able to be heard. I forget the gentleman's name that is the head of the noise abatement committee here in Nahant. I believe there's 3 members, myself, Bob, I forget the other gentleman, you probably know Bob, I think his first name was Bob, and then recently someone else was added. No one's ever really contacted me. I tried to get in touch with Bob. He seemed to have a little bit of his own agenda about the planes flying, down the Lynn Harbor. And so it was a little bit like, well, we got to come together and do something about something. And Nothing seems to be done. I guess we're in a holding pattern right now about this new arrivals on runway 22 right and 22 left, which are the same runways as 4 right, 4 left. But when you're departing, it's 4 right, 4 left. When you're arriving, it's 22 right, 22 left. Those two runways, regardless of how you describe them, is the nemesis of Little Nahant and Big Nahant. So again, all I can say to people is you got to call. And
George, just to clarify, when you say call the Massport number, not
yes,
town hall.
617-631-2222. I call. I've been calling for over 30 years, believe it or not, and it just seems like it falls on deaf ears. But watching some of these CAC committee meetings, and especially the big one that everybody around dumped everything on Nahant, is
George,
call. That's
George,
the thing.
George, I have a different number than what you just said. The number we have that's on our website.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe 631-631-3333. I think maybe as I say 222.
Yeah. So
I think it's 617
561.
561. Yeah, 561-3333.
333. If you go, let me share my screen real quick. If you go to nahant.org under community topics.
Yep.
It's actually it's RNAV study.
Correct.
We could probably change that to be, people probably don't know what RNAV study is or how to find that. So we can make that easier to find. But so we'll update that. But if you go to here, right at the bottom, it shows there's a link that you can submit it via online, or you can call the phone number that George was saying, 561-3333.
Yes,
you're right, George. They put stats out. They put stats out on an annual basis, and the number of complaints that come from East Boston and Winthrop, and those in communities that are a little bit closer, they're in the 100,000s of calls, and we're like in less than 30,000 calls.
Yeah, I understand that.
So you're right. It's you gotta, and now's the time to do it because Dan, are they actually in the study process right now?
I believe it's with the FAA. I think they're going through a public comment process, but I'm trying to find out through the CAC. I'll hopefully have more information next week or next
all right, so we'll put it on the agenda. We'll talk more about it at the next meeting then.
Well, who might, am I correct? His first name is Bob. Who is our CAC representative in the Nahant?
Bob D'Amico.
Bob D'Amico, that's it. Thank you very much. He's a wonderful man. And, I haven't talked to him for a while because, like I say, I hate to keep on bringing up my health, but I just haven't been doing all that well. So I just haven't been doing my due diligence to a point. I do my calls and so on and so forth. But again, like I say, it seems like it's the amount of calls that you get from each town. And what's kind of strange is some of these towns that are calling in 1,000 calls, it shows how many people had called and how many different addresses there are. And sometimes with 1,000 calls, there's only 5 people that make these calls. So I don't know if there's a way you can do it via the computer or something where you hear a noise that automatically calls, because I can't see some human being sitting there and making 100 calls a day. I tried it once and I got a sheet of paper back and it was like, you got to be kidding me. And then I got kind of scolded by the noise abatement people in East Boston saying, you can't do this. And I'm like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. But this is what's happening. So I don't know how they can get that many calls per person, only 5 people. It can make 1,000 phone calls in a month. It just, it baffles me. How if someone's sitting there doing that, I don't know how they can do it.
Be interesting to see how that does happen.
Yeah, well, I wish I was an electronics expert. I could probably look into it. But then again, it's very frustrating because if you break it down to how many people call and how many phone calls, complaints are made, and you look at Nahant and how many phone calls are made, you know, there might be 10 phone calls, but it's by 10 different people. And so you look at 1,000 calls made by 5 people, isn't that almost the same?
Yeah.
If you break it down, you know, maybe not quite, but still it's on that vein, in other words, you know.
Yeah, so I guess the central message, George, is, you know, use that complaint line when you
Yes,
do
all the
witness an
time.
issue.
And
You can also on Nahant.org, I just tried by, if you can't remember RNAV, I just typed in the search box, aircraft noise, and it took me
Yeah,
right
right,
straight to the
exactly.
page. So,
And when you do, request them to send a copy back to you. And, you know, to your computer. They used to send you a hard copy. Now they just do
Yeah.
it to your computer. So you have it on record. I've got, you know, hundreds stored in my computer. I don't know if they ever, you know, ever need them or anything like that, but still, it's very frustrating. And
It's a very detailed response.
yeah,
Pardon me, Gene?
all right, so we'll include it on next meeting's
Yeah,
agenda.
no problem.
And
Yeah,
maybe
and
that's,
you know, I'll be glad to do anything I can, you know, as far as a group goes, you know, because I can only do so much, because like I say, Bob D'Amico is the one that can really speak to this group of the CAC people. I can't. So,
yeah. All right, well, thanks for the update, George.
Yep.
And one other thing, I'd like to put on the agenda for the next meeting, the rights of way status. We have some funding and some actions to take there, and so I'd like to dig into that a little bit the next meeting. Mark or Gene, anything, or Tony, anything else before we move to citizens forum?
No, I think I'm good.
I'm good, Josh.
Okay, so citizens forum, if you'd like to speak, I see Vi's hand already up.
Yep,
Go
yes.
ahead.
So I have
So Vi, could you please state your name and address, please?
Vi Paddock, 172 Willow Road. So I've typed up my report for you all, and so I'm going to read. Good evening. As president of SWIM, I would like to bring 2 topics to the attention of the public this evening. Pollution at Kings Beach at Lynn Shore Drive, and the status of the environment on Kelly Green's golf course. I will start with Kings Beach. My goal this evening is to give everyone present an overview of what is happening with respect to the pollution at Kings Beach. You have surely heard about the shocking amount of sewage which has spewed out onto Kings Beach at the end of Lynn Shore Drive, causing it to be closed for most of the summer. The 110,000 people of Lynn were deprived of the use of their beach at their doorstep. Imagine how Nahanters would feel if Short Beach was closed most of the summer. As a result, there has been public outcry, which has been printed in the Lynn Daily Item in more than 8 articles. I would like to read a portion of one article published on September 15th. Note that Jennifer Armini is a state representative for Marblehead. Stephanie Cooper is Undersecretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs and reports to Rebecca Tepper, who is leader of that office. So now I am quoting. In a meeting with Undersecretary of Environment Stephanie Cooper, Armini said the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs was receptive to one of the committee's secondary options, construction of a 7,500-foot outpour extension pipe at Stacy's Brook that would relocate stormwater runoff out into the harbor, where the bacteria would be diluted through the ocean current. The pipe, however, comes at an estimated cost of $50 million and would take an estimated 8 years to bring the beach's water quality to a safe level. Let's have a discussion. Armenia is speaking now. Let's have a discussion of how long it will take to get the outfall pipe installed and at what cost. The priority is opening the beach for this generation, not the next one, Armini said. Senator Brendan Crichton, who co-chairs the Metropolitan Beaches Commission, said finding time and funding for Kings Beach infrastructure projects remain the most significant challenges toward cleaning the beach. One of the downsides to construction of a UV light treatment center, one of the topics they discussed, he said, is the fact that it would come with regular operational costs, as opposed to an outfall extension, which would not require as much maintenance once it's installed. Still, Crichton said, the outfall pipe would require a thorough review to ensure that bacteria-ridden waters are pushed far enough away from the beach to be properly diluted and to ensure the pipe project would not pose a threat to aquatic life. and these are his words, the outfall obviously creates a permanent solution that doesn't require operating dollars since you don't need to maintain a facility. You just extend the pipe far enough out. Unfortunately, it's going to take a lot longer to get there, between 7 and 10 years, which is significant, unquote. So now I finished the quote. Now these are my words. This positive reception by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to a possible 1.42 mile long pipe, which would carry the raw sewage pouring onto Kings Beach out into the ocean, would be near Nahant, is alarming. Senator Crichton's response is alarming. As you may know, SWIM was created in 1984 when articles of incorporation for Nahant Swim Inc., our formal name, were established by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a result of the discovery that Lynn had a tentative waiver to release inadequately treated sewage into Broad Sound from an outfall a little over a mile south of Nahant. As a result of SWIM's vigorous campaigning, a secondary sewage treatment plant was activated in 1991 to treat wastewater from Lynn, Nahant, Swampscott, and Saugus. Today, after studying a navigational chart of the area, I determined that the end of the proposed pipe, if placed equidistant from Nahant and the tip of the Swampscott shore, would be about a mile from our marginal road and about half a mile from Egg Rock, which is a nature preserve. This is too close for comfort. The raw sewage would affect our pristine beaches, our commercial fishery, our health, the health of the sea, and everything in it. The sewage would affect not only Nahant, but also Marblehead and Salem. Therefore, this is a regional problem, My several letters encouraging our selectmen and our town administrator to gain a seat at the table on this issue have met with their speaking with legislators Crichton, Moulton, and Capano. Their messages back to me are that we need not worry because such a pipe is too expensive, would not be built for many years, and that politics are in the mix. On September 28th, just last week, another article in the Daily Item reported attendance by our Congressman Seth Moulton in Washington, D.C. at a hearing of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, Water Resources, and Environmental Subcommittee. Mr. Moulton described the Kings Beach situation and, quote, asked the panel which avenues the Commonwealth can use to help fund local or regional water infrastructure projects, such as those planned at Kings Beach. It is closed 90% of the time. It is the most polluted beach in Massachusetts. The problem is that with most of the clean water funding available through the bipartisan infrastructure law and other legislative vehicles is only available as loans. Many governments just don't have the tax base or enough to pay them back, unquote. Responding to Moulton in Washington, D.C., Toho Water Authority Executive Director Todd Swingle said the key to regional water funding lies in collaboration between larger and smaller utility organizations, along with the creation of a diverse array of funding approaches in order to attract a broader pool of applicants. Quote, he says, I don't believe that there's any singular funding approach that will work for everyone. So having funding approaches that make sense for the different communities that we serve and their differences is absolutely critical in order to be successful to address the situations that are missing, said Swingle. In conclusion, I want you to know that I have been in contact with leaders of several regional environmental organizations, of whom at least one person is present tonight, for the purpose of generating regional participation in the future as this situation unfolds. SWIM's mission is to protect the environment and educate the public. I hope that everyone on this Zoom call has benefited from my presentation. Our region needs to collaborate and work together to find the best possible solution to the Kings Beach pollution disaster.
Thanks, Vi. A couple of comments. First of all, the introduction made it sound like this was a new problem. This problem has existed my entire life. I think personally, my opinion is it's an embarrassment to the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. As you know, Tony and I, and probably Mark and Jean too, have been in touch with our representatives on this topic. I've expressed my opinion, which is aligned with yours, that that outfall pipe approach is twice as expensive takes twice as long and doesn't solve the problem. So I'm not a politician, so I don't have to play politics. I think it's a stupid idea. And I don't have any problem telling anyone that. It is good that seems to be finally getting some traction, both on the government side and also in organizations like SWIM and advocacy groups. So I think that's important, and it's good to hear that some of these groups will be working together and keeping political pressure up on this topic. It needs to be addressed, and as one of the politicians said, needs to be addressed for our generation, this generation, not the next. We are engaged. I know Brendan Crichton called me last week. He spoke at length on the topic, and I expressed my views, and he's got his job to do, and I think he's going to do his job. So that's my response.
Josh, like you said it beautifully. I think we're all in agreement here that the solution to this problem is finding the source of the pollution and stopping it there, and not just discharging the pollution further out into the ocean, where it has impact on marine life and other communities. So I think we're all in agreement with that. I've also spoken to Senator Crichton, Representative Campano, and also to Mayor Nicholson about this. We just need to stay on top of this. I think we're in alignment with this, and the solution is stop it at its source, and not send it out into the ocean someplace like it doesn't exist. So I think we're all on board on this. Tony, I know you've done a lot of work on this also.
I'd like to address that if I could. And I totally agree with my colleagues, my fellow selectmen, and what they're saying. And having been a member of SWIM and the Conservation Commission years ago when we were battling the Boston Harbor Sewage Project, learned a lot about the tidal basin in Nahant Bay and in Broad Sound, which is where Lynn has another 3 outfalls. But the one thing that's interesting is when you take, and I'll give you the simple graphic of it. If you take Nahant Bay, it's a counterclockwise circulation current. So what happens is if you put an outfall 1.5 miles out, when that is emptied out after a storm, that will either be dissipated by sheer volume of ocean water, or it will be caught up in a wind current of either east or northeast, and that'll take it back into the shoreline. That's what has happened with algae over the years. The same problem. We've been battling algae now for over 100 years. We've been battling Stacy Brook for over 100 years. This is not a new problem, but somebody at some point has to solve it. The extension to the outfall is not going to help us in Nahant at all, because when that easterly wind picks up and takes the counterclockwise current, and I hope I'm not confusing this, but that would take it into the shoreline. It's also a concern for people that live in the southern areas, like down in Situate and Duxbury and Hingham, because this is going to get caught up in that current. But by the time it gets there, it's going to be totally dissipated. And that's what we're looking at. So they are right now, I can't say it for sure, but it appears as though they're already talking about phase 2. There's 2 phases right now. Phase 2 is being discussed, and that's the 7,500 square feet, square feet, sorry, but which is 1.5 miles. And it takes it right out around Egg Rock. Vi is absolutely correct in her assessment of where that's going.
Okay.
Did you want me to add to that, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You mentioned it already. I spoke with Senator Crichton. I spoke with Undersecretary Stephanie Cooper. I can tell you that if we wanted to install a street stormwater catch basin that outfalled onto the beach today, it would be a environmental permitting nightmare, and the required amount of filtration of just street stormwater would basically make it not that impossible to permit financially and for other purposes. The regulations are so strict, state and federal, that there is no way any extension to that outfall pipe would be allowed to be built without ensuring proper filtration, and that the negative impact that's currently being applied to Kings Beach would not be applied to wherever that extension outfall ended up. It simply would not happen. I commend Senator Crichton and that delegation for looking into as many possible solutions as possible. That is a very complicated issue there. I commend SWIM for advocating on behalf of not just Nahant but our surrounding waters. If it helps, if it makes you feel any better, I highly doubt that any project would get approved that would not consider its effects on Nahant and the surrounding areas. So I don't think we have to be concerned about that, but I think we should continue to advocate on behalf of our town.
Tony, just the fact that they're talking about it would bring a concern on for all of us. Now, that doesn't, as you said, that doesn't mean that it will happen or could happen or is even considered to be happening. But it does create a concern.
Well, if they design an outfall extension that includes with it proper filtration and reduction in contaminated outflow, that shouldn't be a concern for us. That's a positive, not only for us but for our neighbors.
No,
I'm saying there is no way the state would ever approve just an extension pipe of taking the contaminated wastewater that's being dumped on Kings Beach and just let it drop further out into the ocean. They would never allow that to happen. And I'm confident in that. And I think we should continue to advocate, but I want to provide some reassurance to our residents that there's no way that would ever happen.
Well, what you just said is reassurance enough to our residents, because the phase one is what you just spoke about, and that is creating a secondary treatment plant with UV options. And that would, anything being sent out at any length would hopefully have been diluted.
Yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of different technology that they're looking into. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Getting to the source, treating it as it's on its way through an outfall, treating the beach or treating the area that it eventually outfalls to. There's a ton of different elements to, any project there. All I'm saying is, I'm trying to provide some reassurance. There's, and the state provided that reassurance to me when I spoke to them. They would never allow a project to take, contaminated, a contaminated situation that's happening on Kings Beach and just move it to someplace else. It would need to be treated. The problem would need to be solved through that project. It wouldn't just be a shifting of the outfall to some other problem. Do you understand what? So, and we would be part of that project design. It's also very much in its infancy. Right now they're just talking concepts. They don't have any funding. But we should be supporting the conversation. We want to see that the area gets cleaned up. But we want to, of course, advocate, for our community at the same time.
Absolutely. I've watched this very scenario take place, the impossibility of it, when Polly Bradley and the Mike Mannings went from town to town and meeting to meeting and turned this all around with the Boston Harbor Sewage Project. And I'm not saying that we're in that situation now. We're not even close. We don't even have that same level of worry, but we do need to stay on top of it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe just one of each of us attending any of the major meetings would certainly be a help.
Yep, I'm on the Beaches Commission as well. And so I'm advocating for us through that. But yeah, I agree. We should continue to be part of the process. I assume we'll continue to see stories about it in the news, and because the delegation, it's the most shut down beach in the state, so it's at the top of the priority list. So it'll continue to be a topic of conversation. We'll be at the table, and I appreciate a group like Swim and others helping us with that advocacy.
Thanks, Tony. Oh, sorry, do you?
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to move to the next speaker, unless you had anything else to add, Gene.
No.
So normally we consider this a Nahant Citizens Forum, but we'll make an exception for tonight. We have at least two Evans with their hands up. So let's start with Evan Katz.
Great, thank you very much. And I think this might be, sorry for my cat here, helpful with the situation that you've been briefed on. And we want to thank Nahant Swim for inviting us to participate. I represent the group Save Kings Beach. We're
Sorry,
on Facebook.
Evan, I forgot to mention, would you mind stating your name and address, please?
Oh yeah, sure. Evan Katz, 18 Hardy Road, Swampscott.
Thanks.
So I represent Save Kings Beach. We are a coalition dedicated to stopping the flow of sewage onto Kings Beach in Nahant Bay. We have 1,200 Facebook members. Most are from Swampscott and Lynn. There are 60 from Nahant. We'd love to have more. And we have representation from Marblehead and Salem as well. This is not just a Facebook group, but this is what we do. On Facebook, we report bacteria levels during the swim season. We share factual information, photos, official reports, and history about what's been going on in Swampscott and Lynn that has led to this situation. We raise awareness about Kings Beach and Nahant Bay being a year-round resource. People talk about the summertime and they forget that there are people in the water all year round in Nahant Bay. We remind the public that Lynn and Swampscott are under federal orders to stop the sewage. And we invite social media users to follow us on Facebook and our Instagram page. And we encourage residents to tell local officials, as you have suggested, fix the pipes. Beyond Facebook, and this is where I think we can provide some assistance to the goals that we both share. We attend public meetings of the Swampscott Select Board and Lynn Water and Sewer Commission. In fact, we have representatives at the Swampscott Select Board meeting tonight. We attend events like the Swampscott Farmers Market and the Lynn Goldfish Pond Flea Market to inform residents of our mission. We increase public awareness through sign holding events and social hours, and we inform elected town, city, and state officials of the facts and impacts of action and inaction. This is a regional issue, as you so clearly pointed out. Sewage flows from Stacy's Brook every day and affects the entire bay and all the towns surrounding it. Kings Beach and all the access points in Nahant Bay, as you point out, are vulnerable to what's going on now. The one proposed plan to stop pollution would require a mini sewage treatment plant using ultraviolet light, and the plan is to build that in the coastal floodplain in Swampscott. Don't think that's a good idea. And then there's the pipe extension, which you so correctly pointed out would put sewage and stormwater into the bay. One interesting footnote, the size of the pipes right now that as it's presently envisioned are so small that it would only work if there was less than a half an inch of rain. If there's more than a half an inch of rain, the sewage would have to continue to flow on to Kings Beach. Neither of these are proper solutions. Our position, the position of Save Kings Beach, is to push local officials in Lynn and Swampscott to fix the pipes. So we welcome the participation from Nahant through Save Kings Beach. We would like to join you to follow us on Facebook and join us. And we would just love to expand the number of people that are working with us and spread the word. Lynn and Swampscott need to fix the pipes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your advocacy, Mr. Katz. George Mahobin. You have anything to say, George?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank Tony and the town DPW for the great work they've done down there at the Little Nahant Playground. I can't tell you what a smile I put on my face when I drove by there and actually saw some children playing down there for the first time in a long, long time. So kudos to you and the town. Second of all, are you going to start the dune restoration down around that area? And then the third thing would be that the crosswalk in Wilson Road, they have finished the railings for the stairs going down the right of way. So I don't know if you know that or not. I just want to let you know that so you can proceed with putting that crosswalk in. That's it. Thank you.
Well, I can start off. I know in the Short Beach Dune, the material, they were able to reuse some of the material from the playground for the dune restoration, and the DPW has plans to plant seagrass on that newly placed sand. And with that, I'll hand it off to Tony for the gory details.
I was not aware that the railings were put in at the right of way. So thanks for letting me know, George. I'll talk to Zach about the crosswalk.
You're welcome.
And then on Friday, we have a call with FEMA. So we were able to, like Josh just mentioned, we were able to reuse some of the old surface material from the old playground that we had to dig in order to put new foundation in for the new equipment. We were able to use that for the dune. It was compatible, and the dune work is already permitted through our local Concom. We have additional funds approved through FEMA for additional dune renourishment work in that area. However, we're running into a little bit of a hiccup with FEMA, who's essentially attempting to de-obligate our funds. So we're meeting with them on Friday to push them not to do that, and that we already have the project permitted and we're ready to go. I've also spoke with Congressman Moulton's office about that as well. So we are prepared to put some political pressure on FEMA if we need to. What MEMA explained to us is that FEMA is very limited in funds at the moment, and a lot of extreme disasters occurring across the country, and so they're kind of being tight with their budget at the moment. So we're kind of in a little bit of a standstill. We're pushing hard to keep that money obligated. And then regardless of what happens with that, we have an application in with FEMA for a hazard mitigation project to redo the entire dune from Little Nahant to Big Nahant, and bring the size of that dune up a few feet, improve the entryways. It's a multi-million-dollar project that we have a grant application in for that. It may be a while before we hear back as to, we did pass the first round of review. I think we're like number 16 on the list in front of FEMA. So we have some backup plans in place, but it's going to be some time before we hear about that grant. So we're working on it, George. And that's the update.
Great. You
But
said
in the near term, the material, the sand that got put back onto the dune will get smoothed out and planted with the seagrass in the near term, in the next few months. Zach told me, it can go in anytime it's dormant, which, could be at any point in the fall or winter. Is that correct, Tony?
That's correct.
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, could I suggest we try to wrap up our discussion on the Kings Beach issue? I think there are other people that rather than jumping from one subject to the next, perhaps we could wrap up on the.
Okay. Evan Smith, did you want to talk about Kings Beach?
Yeah, Kings Beach and a few other things. So, my name's Evan Smith. I live at 4 Tudor Street in Lynn. I'd like to first of all thank Swim for the invitation. I'm a member of the group Lynn Environmental Volunteers and also Save Kings Beach. And I want to thank you for your attention to this issue, since pollution doesn't respect municipal boundaries. And because of broken pipes and illicit connections, raw sewage empties out into Nahant Bay year round, even during dry weather, even when there's no rain. And this has an impact on water quality in all of our communities. I'd also just like to thank you for your dune restoration work. This helps threaten birds along our coast, such as the piping plover. So thank you for that. And also for your recycling and composting initiatives, which help divert waste from the Wind Waste Saugus incinerator, which is the oldest incinerator in the country and is dangerous and underperforming. Last week, it had a major malfunction. This facility doesn't meet modern pollution standards, but the state allows them to buy credits to offset their excessive emissions. Ash from this incinerator is dumped into an unlined landfill in the middle of the Rumney Marshes, which is a designated area of critical environmental concern. I feel that we need long-term sustainable solutions to the trash problem. So I'd like to thank the town of Nahant for doing your part to embrace zero waste. You're an inspiration. So just wanted to thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And let me just say, for someone who spent 3 years as a senior fellow at the Conservation Law Foundation, we've tried so hard to shut down that incinerator in Saugus. And I think it's about time it gets shut down. And I continue to fight every day with that. We worry about the discharge at Kings Beach. We should also worry about what's in our ear and what's coming across the heart in the westerly winds every single day. So I agree with you 100%.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else?
Yes. Me, again,
Okay.
part
All right,
two.
before we come back to you, I just want to make sure there's nobody else that wanted to speak. Raise your hand or unmute yourself and say something. I don't see anything, and nothing in the chat, Tony.
Nope, we're good. Keep going.
All right, Vi, you're back up again.
Yeah, I'm back. It's much, much, much shorter. My second topic is about the Kelly Greens Golf Course, and I will be brief. Again, I am speaking for SWIM, whose mission is to protect the environment and educate the public. Soon, the lease for the management of the Kelly Greens Golf Course will be up for renewal. As you know, the land belongs to the town of Nahant. In 2016, when the current contract was about to be created, I sent a letter to the selectmen then in office, asking them to consider changing the specs, I have a copy of them, to include better guidelines for chemical applications on this public land. Not one of those selectmen replied to my letter, which I delivered to their homes. So tonight I am trying again, and I encourage you, our current selectmen, to ensure that the environment of the biggest wetlands in Nahant is safe. The golf course is an enormous wetland, which abuts the Johnson School grounds and garden, residents' homes, and the ocean. It includes ponds which harbor wildlife. Golfers spend many hours walking on the grass. The pumping station next to the restaurant ejects overflow water from the nearby pond out into the sea next to Ocean View. Therefore, any fertilizers or chemicals applied to the golf course end up in the ocean. And as we know, these damage the environment for all life in the sea, including the success of our local commercial fishery. The 2016 document I mentioned in my introduction is entitled thus: Town of Nahant request for proposals for the lease of the town-owned Kelly Greens Golf Course, Nahant, Massachusetts, contract 2017-01, issued June 1, 2016. Under the section in this document entitled Maintenance Plan, it states, and I quote, "The golf course is expected to be maintained under the following minimum specifications unless modified through agreement between the lessee/manager and the Board of Selectmen. The minimum standards are subject to yearly review," unquote. My first question is, what chemicals and fertilizers in what amounts are being applied by the current management company? The specs on this subject in 2016 do not seem to be detailed enough. Here's what the specs say on page 20. Fertilizer. Greens and aprons fertilize 6 times with a total of 6 pounds of nitrogen. Tees fertilize 6 times for a total of 6 pounds of nitrogen. Fairways and roughs fertilize twice with a total of 6 pounds of nitrogen. Section 4, pesticide application. Fungicide applications on greens as needed with a minimum of 10 times per season. Granular snow mold protection applied December 1st on all greens. Insecticide application on greens as needed with a minimum of 4 times. Herbicide application to tees only for pre-emergence crabgrass protection. Fairway pesticide application to be negotiated as on an as needed basis, unquote. My second item after requesting, my first request, of course, was to what is being applied. And my second request is SWIM would like to see chemical testing of soils and of waters in the ponds and in water pumped out of the pond next to the restaurant. Chemicals tested should include any herbicides, pesticides, and nitrogen. The general E. coli testing on our beaches each week does not give the public the information they deserve to have to protect their health and that of their children and pets in the natural environment. I have done some research and there are ways to have a golf course be environmentally sound. I hope, Selectmen, that you will move forward on this subject by requesting a report on all chemicals currently being used and by having the land and ponds tested for chemicals. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you gave us the short version, Vi. Step one, I think, in my opinion, step one in this process is finding out exactly what's being used, how frequently, where, when, all that information. And Tony has a meeting with them tomorrow, and I'm hoping we'll come away with that information tomorrow and take it from there. I don't know if anyone had anything to add, Tony or Mark or Jean. But that's what I see as step one, is finding out what the current practice is, and so we can understand whether that's an acceptable practice or an unacceptable practice or something that somewhere in between.
Let me just add, Josh, I think that the vibe brings up a lot of good points that we should look into. I know that there is an association, national association for, there's sort of a green standard for golf courses that is awarded nationally, that if you meet certain environmental standards, you get this certification. So we can look into that. But I do imagine that I would assume that whatever chemicals are being used legally, and that who's ever applying them are applying them with the proper licenses. Not to say that we can't do better, but I certainly hope that the chemicals that are being used on the golf course are chemicals that are authorized, legal, and number two, that they're being applied by someone who is licensed to do that. Is that right, Tony?
Yeah, well, Dan can speak to it better than I can. I'm pretty sure the RFP and the contract, the RFP, the proposal, and the lease all require a licensed pesticide manager, which I believe Brett is. Dan, can you speak to that?
Yeah, part of the contingency was that there was a certain degree of certification, not just any greenskeeper, but a certain degree of certification. I don't recall what it was, what it is at the moment, but Brett does meet that standard. So he is compliant with the contract in that regard. And he does have extra training with regard to pesticides and chemicals and things like that. That's something we insisted on with the new contract. I don't believe it was part of the former contracts, or leases, I should say, but it is part of the current one. Which doesn't expire until.
Yeah, let's find out what's happening now, and take it from there.
I think it's just my own involvement in this would simply be that we're asking to get some measurements on what's being used, how much, when, and I think Vi stated that. And I think that we just simply answer the questions and just be assured or ensure that we're meeting minimum standards.
Yeah, well, I think we need to probably do a little bit more than meet the minimum, and I hope we can do that. Like I said, I think there is I don't know if it's USGA type of standards, but there are classifications, I believe, for golf courses that meet some sort of green standard. I can provide, perhaps you can look into that a little bit more. I can look into it a little bit more. I'm not saying we meet those standards at Kelly Greens right now, but it's certainly something we could aspire to. My concern is just making sure that whatever's being used is authorized to be used, and it's being authorized to be used by people who are licensed to do it. Can we do better? Yeah, we probably can do better. We probably should do better. And let's find out what those better standards are.
All right, Elaine Leahy. Do you want to unmute yourself? If you have something to say.
Yes, hi, I'm sorry. Thank you for having me on this call. I'm a Marblehead resident. I'm the Executive Director of Sustainable Marblehead. And
would you mind stating your name and address, please?
Sure, Elaine Leahy. I live on Ida Road in Marblehead. So I'm just here because I kind of was spreading the word to some of the environmental organizations. And I do agree it's a regional issue with the Kings Beach and the pollution, and the ocean doesn't have that boundary. And thank you all for looking into this. And I'm sure our select board is keeping aware, and we're going to be, keeping an eye on the situation too, and anything we can do to help, and appreciate the reassurances that, the state's going to look into the correct, it's very complicated, obviously. So just wanted to say that thanks for having some out of towners, and thanks for your work on this issue.
Okay, thanks for your interest too.
Thank you.
And Tony, invite, thank you for doing this, and bringing these other communities involved here. Maybe we should think about, I know that we listened to people in Lynn, in Swampscott tonight. Now we just heard from someone from Marblehead. and perhaps Beverly and Salem could be affected, but perhaps this is certainly a regional issue, and I think it deserves a regional sort of response to it, and maybe we can organize by a joint meeting of some sort. And it could be with members of the Board of Selectmen, and Board of Health, from Nahant, Lynn, Swampscott, Marblehead, Beverly, Salem, but all of these communities that could be affected by this. And maybe we could host it at the Nahant Life Saving Station or something like that. And have an open discussion about this.
Well, I'm happy to work on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ellen Goldberg.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. I'm Ellen Goldberg, 8 Highland Road, Nahant. I am a member of SWIM, the Green Communities Committee, the Community Preservation Committee. I work with Tony on the Compost Initiative right now, Tony and the Board of Selectmen. And my day job is the Director of Operations of Clean Production Action, which is a nonprofit environmental organization that works to get toxic chemicals out of products in the supply chain. So the golf course issue is also a little bit near to my heart. I just want to make a few comments about this in support of the efforts to get some disclosure on what is being used. So a couple of comments. Legal does not mean safe. License does not mean safe. Minimum standards does not mean safe. There is also potentially an issue of public policy. So we should be able to find out this information. There's probably a public right to know what is being used on public property, and also the workers who are putting the chemicals on the property. They have a right to know what they are working with and how to protect themselves. If any of these chemicals are stored in Nahant, I believe the fire department is required to be notified of what they are and how they're being stored in case there is a fire. They need to know how to respond properly. I do know a green golf professional who could potentially be brought in for a discussion as you go about the efforts to renew the contract and investigate safer management practices. And I have a meeting on Friday with the Toxic Use Reduction Institute, which is an institute that is part of UMass Lowell, and they focus on safer chemicals. And so I've asked them to meet with me to give me some context and some policy guidance and some real kind of detailed knowledge about golf course chemical management. Because as Vi mentioned, we're told in the contract that these certain categories of chemicals are used. We really have no idea what those chemicals are. For all we know, it's glyphosate, right? For all we know, it's something horribly toxic that gets into the water and, is devastating to, with aquatic toxicology. So I'm here in support of and helping to advance the cause of figuring out what we have going on.
Ellen, just before you continue there, just, on the other side of that coin is it also could be none of those things.
Exactly.
And we have I just want to be, supportive of you and also be supportive of our current lessee, who is, licensed and trained. And I agree with, the concern you guys have and, getting more information. I just don't want to portray it as something negative without getting that information first.
Yeah, I don't think we don't need to speculate, because we'll find out what's actually happening. So that, it's always dangerous to make assumptions and then build opinions based on those assumptions. So
You're absolutely correct. And I apologize if I ended up going in that direction. So I didn't mean to portray that, because I started out saying, I'm supportive of this issue of disclosure and clarification, and then I got a little, right, got a little hot.
Hey,
So,
You're good. You're good, Ellen.
okay.
Ellen,
So I'm here,
if I-
here in support of all of this.
Ellen, Gene Canty, just
Gene.
want to be shy, just so you understand, my use of the word, that was me, of minimum standards was just to create, in my mind, a starting point.
I know. It's just that in my line of work every day, businesses walk around saying, but we're compliant. And that ends up being a problem, because compliance standards end up being created by politicians who are just trying for the lowest common denominator a lot of times. And so that's why I hooked onto that phrase. That minimum standards they're not always good. That's all.
Okay.
And just because something is legal, there's all toxic chemicals in products in the supply chain all around us. So that's why I hooked on to that phrase and that kind of attitude.
I can take the constructive criticism.
Thank you.
Ellen, did you have more? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, I did want to just end. I am meeting with Tori, the Toxic Use Reduction Institute, on Friday morning, just as a person, like I know her from my work. And I said, can you just talk to me about golf course chemicals and management and policy? So she's just going to spend a half an hour on the phone with me. And if she's not the right person, she'll point me in a different direction. But I just wanted to start to get some facts and policy understanding, so that we know what, we know the context, right? We know the political context, we know the legal context, and we have some facts. But I think Vi was also pointing out that, it'd be, once we get the names of these things, we should test and say, well, is this actually getting in, whatever it is, we need to find out what it is first.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd like to interject. I don't see any reason why we can't have a target of a healthy golf course. I mean, just fulfilling the law. I'd like to have a dream for a golf course that's safe for babies to crawl on.
Well,
why not?
Hopefully not while people are golfing.
Well, you see children playing on the putting green next to the restaurant, little toddlers, babies sitting on it. I've seen them when people are having dinner. I mean, babies, little kids. I mean, we should have a dream. Why not? Other golf courses are mostly chemical free or greatly reduced. So I would like to have, maybe we'll find that our golf course has almost nothing on it, and it's green as can be, and we don't have to worry about it. But, as I said, I have my 2 requests.
It's a great goal.
Yep. So more to come on this topic. We're going to dig into it and see what's happening and see what can be done.
I guess I have one other issue that's totally different, very short. I've asked Zach Taylor 3 times now what plans he has for protecting the harbor from the power washing and scrubbing of the boats when they come out of the water this coming Thursday and Friday. I've asked him in August if he had bought the straw sausages to block up the drains. I've asked him if he has another plan. I've gotten no answers. So maybe you Selectmen can find out what's going on, because the torrent of paint and chemicals that flows into our pristine harbor as everybody cleans their many boats is distressing.
I sent you an email on this actually during this meeting. I think we'll make sure that there's the new straw sausages and new strainers in the manholes before the boat all.
Great. Yeah. I call them sausages because I don't know what else they are, but these long sausages.
I borrowed your term in my reply, but yeah, we'll have those in place.
Thanks.
And Vi, I asked Zach to hold off on responding to you, so don't blame him, blame me, because it's a topic of discussion that we're having at the moment.
Okay.
Yes, those will be in place as we do every single year, but we're, there's more of a conversation occurring at the moment, and so I just asked them to kind of hold off, but those will get put in place.
Thank you, Tony.
Anyone else?
Nothing in the chat.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second,
Any discussion on adjournment? If not, we'll take a roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Max on the line.
Josh Antrim, aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
See you later. Bye.